Hello, and welcome back to the Candlelit Journal. I'm glad you're here. Wherever you are right now, whatever kind of day you've had, I hope this can be a place of rest for you. Tonight, we return to the inn at the crossroads. You remember it, perhaps. 2 stories tall, built of timber and stone. A massive hearth in the common room where the fire never quite dies. An ancient oak tree standing watch where the roads meet. And of course, the innkeeper. The one who writes these pages by candlelight after all the guests have retired. The one who sees what passes and remembers and writes it down so that nothing is forgotten. Tonight's entry comes from deep winter. A storm is coming, the worst in living memory, some will say. For 5 days, the wind will howl and the snow will fall, and the world outside will disappear. And inside the inn, strangers will become something more. So settle in. Pull the blankets close. Let your eyes grow heavy if they want to. The fire is burning, the candle is lit, and the story is about to begin.
Day 1. The arrival. The 17th day of the month of the wolf moon. I knew the storm was coming before I saw the sky. There is a feeling that settles into the bones when the weather is about to turn. My father taught me this. He could read the sky the way some men read books, finding meaning in the color of clouds, the direction of wind, the behavior of birds. I remember sitting with him on the front step when I was young, watching him study the horizon with narrowed eyes. He would tell me what was coming: rain, snow, a break in the cold. He was rarely wrong. This morning, I woke before dawn with an ache in my hands. The joints of my fingers were stiff, slow to move. The room was colder than it should have been, despite the fire I had banked carefully the night before. And when I rose and looked out my small east-facing window, I saw the sky. It was the color of a bruise, deep purple and gray, with no trace of the rose and gold that usually greets the sunrise. The clouds hung low and heavy, pressing down upon the world like a hand pressing down upon a chest. The mountains to the east had disappeared entirely, swallowed by the darkness that was moving toward us. I stood there for a long moment, watching. The wind had not yet risen, the snow had not yet begun, but the storm was there, waiting. I could feel it the way one feels the presence of another person in a darkened room. I dressed quickly and went downstairs. The common room was empty at that hour. The benches pushed against the walls, the tables wiped clean from the night before. The fire had burned down to embers, and I knelt before the hearth and began to rebuild it. More wood than usual, larger logs. If my feeling was right, we would need a fire that could burn for days without constant tending. I checked the stores next. The root cellar was well stocked, turnips and carrots and onions, their earthy smell rising up as I descended the ladder. Barrels of salted pork and smoked fish, sacks of flour and oats, apples, a little soft now, but still good. We had enough. We had prepared well for winter, and even a long storm should not empty our larder. The woodshed, too, was full. Cords of oak and ash split and stacked by my own hands in the autumn months. There was wood enough to burn for a month or more. Whatever was coming, we would not freeze. By the time I had finished my inspection, the sky had grown darker still. The first flakes of snow had begun to fall, drifting down like small white feathers. They melted the moment they touched the ground, but I knew that would not last. The ground was cold. The air was cold. Soon, the snow would begin to stick and then to pile, and then there would be no stopping it. The first travelers arrived mid-morning. They were an elderly couple, a man and woman who moved slowly but surely down the north road. The man walked with a staff, thick and gnarled, and the woman held his arm with both hands. They were wrapped in cloaks of heavy wool, but I could see that they were not dressed for a storm. Their clothing was meant for cold, yes, but not for what was coming. I went out to meet them. "Welcome to the inn," I said. "You've arrived just in time. There's a storm coming, and a bad one." The man smiled. His face was weathered, lined with years and wind and sun, but his eyes were kind. "Oh, we know, Matrogo," he said. "We felt it this morning, same as you. That's why we pushed on. Didn't want to be caught in the open." "You're wise," I said. "Come in. I'll get a fire going for you and some hot food." The woman had not spoken yet. She turned her face toward me as spoke, and I saw then that her eyes were clouded. A pale film covered them like frost on a window. She was blind, or very nearly so. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "We've been walking since before dawn. My feet are quite frozen." "Then we'll warm them," I said, and I meant it. Their names were Marin and Borin. They had been married 47 years. They told me this as I settled them by the fire and brought them mugs of hot cider, spiced with cloves and honey. 47 years. I could barely imagine it. A lifetime spent with another person, walking the same road, sleeping in the same bed, growing old together. "We're going to see our grandchild," Marin said. "Our daughter's first baby, a boy, born 3 weeks ago in the settlement on the other side of the mountains." 3 weeks old, Borin said, and there was wonder in his voice. "Can you imagine? We've been grandparents for 3 weeks and haven't even met him yet." "The mountains are a hard crossing in winter," I said carefully. "We know." Marin's blind eyes turned toward the fire. "But I wanted to see him. Or," she added with a small smile, "not see him, I suppose, but hold him, smell that smell that babies have, feel him in my arms while I still can." I did not ask what she meant by that. I did not need to. There was something in her voice, a kind of quiet acceptance, that told me everything. The second group arrived just after midday. There were 2 of them, a man and a child. The man was perhaps 30, with the calloused hands of a tradesman and worried eyes of someone carrying more weight than he was used to. The child was a girl of perhaps 9 or 10, thin and pale with dark hair that fell past her shoulders. She walked close beside the man, her hand gripping his cloak, but she did not look at him or at anything else. Her eyes were fixed on the ground before her feet. "Welcome," I said. "Come in, quickly. The snow is getting heavier." The man nodded gratefully and guided the child inside. She moved like a sleepwalker, her footsteps mechanical, her face empty of expression. When I tried to catch her eye, she looked away. "I'm Aldrich," the man said once they were settled at a table near the fire. "This is my niece, Pella." I waited for the girl to respond, to nod or look up or give some sign that she had heard. She did not. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes on the table. "She doesn't speak," Aldrich said quietly, leaning toward me. "Not since. Not for 3 months now. Not a word." "I see," I said, and I did. I had known silence like that. I had seen it in the eyes of travelers who had lost too much too quickly, whose grief was so large that words could not contain it. Sometimes the only response to unbearable pain is to close the mouth, to lock the voice away, to become as still and quiet as stone. "Her parents," Aldrich began, then stopped. He took a breath. "Fever, both of them, within 3 days of each other." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm taking her to live with my wife's family in the East. They have other children, a farm, space for her." He looked at his niece with a mixture of love and helplessness that made my heart ache. "I don't know what else to do. I'm a carpenter. I live in a single room. I don't know anything about raising a child." I brought them food, hot pottage with chunks of turnip and pork, and fresh bread that I had baked that morning. Pella ate mechanically, lifting the spoon to her mouth with the same empty precision with which she had walked. But she ate everything in her bowl, and when I refilled it, she ate that too. The third arrival came alone. He was a man of middle years, dressed in the plain dark robes of a physician. His face was pale and drawn, with deep shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and troubled thoughts. He carried a leather bag that I knew, without asking, contained the tools of his trade, lancets and bandages, bottles of herbs and tinctures, the instruments of healing. "Is there room?" he asked. His voice was hoarse, as if he had not spoken in some time. "There is always room," I said. "Come in." He gave his name as Elric. He asked for a private chamber if one was available, and I gave him one of the 2 private rooms on the upper floor. He seemed to want solitude, and I did not press him. Some guests come to the inn seeking company. Others come seeking an escape. I have learned to recognize the difference. He took his meals alone in his room that first day, eating little and speaking less. But I noticed that when he looked at the other guests, particularly at the child Pella, his expression was one of profound sadness. There was a wound in him, I thought. Something fresh and deep and still bleeding. By late afternoon, the snow was falling heavily. The wind had risen too, no longer a gentle whisper, but a moan, a howl, a living thing that threw itself against the walls of the inn and rattled the shutters and sent gusts of cold air through every crack and gap. I went around the building, stuffing rags into the worst of the gaps, checking that the shutters were properly latched. The world outside was disappearing, the road already buried, the ancient oak tree at the crossroads reduced to a gray shape in a white void. I was just lighting the candles when the door burst open. A woman stood in the doorway, cloaked in black, her face barely visible beneath her hood. Snow swirled around her, driven by the wind, and for a moment she seemed less like a person and more like a figure from a dream, a spirit from the storm itself. Close the door, I called. Quickly. She stepped inside and pushed the door shut against the wind. It took all her strength. The wind howled in protest, then fell silent as the door closed, leaving only the crackling of the fire and the muffled roar outside. The woman pushed back her hood. She was young, perhaps 25, with dark hair pulled back severely from a face that was beautiful but hard. Her eyes were red-rimmed, as if she had been crying, but her expression was controlled, almost cold. She wore the black of mourning. "I need a room," she said, "just for the night." "I'm afraid it may be more than a night," I said gently. "This storm is not going to pass quickly." She looked at me sharply, as if I'd insulted her. "I have somewhere I need to be." "I understand, but the roads will not be passable, not until the storm breaks and the snow settles." I gestured toward the window. "Look for yourself." She did not move. Her jaw tightened. I could see her struggling against the truth, wanting to deny it, wanting to will the storm away through sheer determination. But the wind howled again, and even she could not pretend she had not heard it. "Fine," she said. "Then I need a room for however long this lasts." Her name was Thessaly. She did not tell me why she wore black, and I did not ask. But she carried with her a small clay urn, and she held it close to her chest as if it were the most precious thing in the world. I gave her the second private room, and she disappeared into it without another word. 3 more travelers arrived before the storm made arrival impossible. The first was a soldier, or he had been once. He was a big man, broad in the shoulders, with a face that had been broken and healed badly, and was now more interesting than handsome. He wore no colors, carried no banner, served no lord that I could see. But he moved like a fighting man, always aware of his surroundings, always ready. His name was Corvin, and when I asked what had brought him to the crossroads, he only shrugged and said the road had to go somewhere. The second was a woman in the simple gray habit of a religious order. Sister Verity, she called herself. She was perhaps 50, with a calm face and steady hands and eyes that missed nothing. She was a healer, she told me, traveling between settlements to tend to those who could not tend to themselves. When she saw the physician Elric sitting alone by the fire, she studied him for a long moment before turning away. The third was a merchant, a man called Brennan. He was well-dressed, prosperous, impatient. From the moment he entered the inn, he complained. The roads were bad. The storm was unexpected. He had important business in the east. He could not afford to be delayed. "I'm afraid the storm does not care about your business," I said. And I confess I said it more sharply than I should have. "We are all delayed thither." He scowled at me, but said nothing more. And so, we were 8, 9 if you counted me, 8 strangers brought together by chance and weather, sheltering from a storm that showed no sign of stopping. The wind howled, the snow fell, the fire burned, and outside the world disappeared, leaving only the inn and the people in it. That first night we ate together in near silence. I had made a large pot of pottage, thick with vegetables and meat, and fresh bread to soak up the broth. There was cider to drink and wine for those who wanted it, and a fire that roared against the cold. But despite the warmth and the food, there was a tension in the room. We were strangers. We were trapped. And we did not know how long we would have to share this space. Marin and Boren sat together as they always did, her hand resting on his arm. The merchant Brennan sat alone, eating quickly and looking at his plate. Thessaly had emerged from her room, but sat apart from the others, picking at her food without appetite. The physician Elric had not come down at all. Sister Verity sat near the fire, her bowl in her lap, watching everyone with those quiet, observant eyes. Corvin the soldier sat in a corner, his back to the wall, eating steadily. And Aldrich and Pella sat together, Aldrich coaxing his niece to eat, Pella moving her spoon mechanically. No one spoke. The only sounds were the crackling of the fire, the howling of the wind, and the soft clink of spoons against bowls. I moved among them, refilling bowls and mugs, checking that everyone had what they needed. And as I did, I looked at each of them, trying to see beyond the surface, trying to understand what had brought them to this crossroads on this night. Everyone has a story, my father used to say. Everyone is the hero of their own tale. Our job is not to judge them, but to give them a place to rest. I thought of that as I looked at them. The elderly couple seeking a grandchild they might never reach. The silent child and her overwhelmed uncle. The widow in black with her precious urn. The physician with his shadowed eyes. The soldier without a lord. The healer none. The impatient merchant. Each of them carrying something. Each of them on a journey that had been interrupted by the storm. And now they were here, in my inn, or under my roof. I looked at the white candle burning on the mantel, the one given to me by the mysterious old woman who had walked on top of the snow. It flickered gently in an unfelt breeze, its light pure and steady. "Welcome them all," she had said, and I would. However long the storm lasted, whatever they needed, I would be here. The wind howled louder, and somewhere in the distance, a branch cracked and fell. The fire leaped, the candle burned, and outsit the storm was only beginning. Day 2, the friction, the 18th day of the month of the wolf moon, I woke to a world made of white. When I looked out my east-facing window, I could see nothing but snow. It had drifted against the inn during the night, piling higher and higher until it covered the lower half of my window completely. The upper half showed only more snow falling, thick and steady, driven sideways by a wind that had not stopped for a moment since it began. I dressed and went downstairs. The fire had burned low during the night, but the coals were still hot, and within a few minutes I had it roaring again. The common room was cold despite the fire, the chill seeping in through every gap and crack that I had not managed to plug. I made a note to check the stores of firewood again. We might need more than I had thought. The guests emerged slowly that morning, drawn from their beds by the cold and the smell of the porridge I was cooking. Marin and Boren came down together, moving stiffly, the cold harder on their old bones than on younger flesh. Aldrich carried Pella, who seemed even smaller and more fragile than she had the day before. The merchant Brennan was the first to complain. "How long will this last?" he demanded, standing at the window and staring out at the white nothing. "I have business. I have commitments. I cannot simply wait here indefinitely." "The storm will last as long as it lasts," I said. "There's nothing any of us can do but wait." "That's easy for you to say," he snapped. "This is your home. You have nowhere else to be." "We all have somewhere else to be," Thessaly said from her corner. Her voice was cold. "You're not special." Brennan turned to face her, his expression darkening. "Excuse me? You heard me?" She did not look up from the bowl she was not eating. "Everyone in this room has somewhere they need to be. Everyone in this room has been delayed by this storm. You are not the only one with important business." "And what business could you possibly have?" Brennan asked, his voice thick with contempt. "Grieving? Feeling sorry for yourself?" The silence that followed was absolute. Thessaly looked up. Her eyes were like ice. "I am taking my husband's ashes to the place where he was born," she said, each word precise and deadly. "He died 4 months ago. He was 27 years old. He never got to go home. So I am taking him there myself because I promised I would, because it was the last thing he asked of me. Is that business enough for you?" Brennan had the grace to look ashamed. His mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. Finally, he turned away and sat down at a table as far from everyone else as he could manage. I went to Thessaly with a mug of hot cider. She took it without meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, "for your loss." "Everyone is sorry," she said. "It doesn't bring him back." "No," I agreed, "it doesn't." She looked at me then, surprised perhaps by my honesty. I could have offered her platitudes. I could have told her that time heals all wounds, that he was in a better place, that she would find happiness again. But those words would have been lies, or at least half-truths, and she would have known it. So I said nothing more. I simply sat with her for a moment, letting her know that she was not alone. The physician, Elric, finally emerged that morning. He came down the stairs slowly, as if each step required effort. His face was even paler than it had been the day before, and the shadows under his eyes were darker. He looked like a man who had not slept at all, or who had slept and found no rest in it. Sister Verity was watching him. I noticed because I was watching on her. She had the eyes of a healer, always assessing, always looking for signs of illness or injury. And I could tell from her expression that she did not like what she saw in him. She approached him carefully, the way one approaches a wounded animal. "Good morning," she said. "I am Sister Verity. I understand you are a physician." He looked at her warily. I am, or I was. Was? I am taking some time away from practice. His voice was flat, emotionless. A rest, I see. She did not press further, but I could tell she wanted to. She could sense, as I could, that there was a story here, something that had driven this man from his calling, something that haunted him still. The morning passed slowly. With nowhere to go and nothing to do, the guests were restless. Brennan paced. Thessaly stared into the fire. Aldrich tried to engage Pella in conversation, but she did not respond, did not even seem to hear him. Corvin the soldier sat in his corner, sharpening a knife with slow, methodical strokes. Marin and Borean dozed by the fire, her head on his shoulder, and outside the storm raged on. I was in the kitchen, preparing the midday meal, when I heard the crash. I ran to the common room to find Brennan on his feet, his chair overturned behind him, his face red with frustration. "This is intolerable," he was shouting. "We cannot simply sit here like prisoners. There must be something we can do." "Lower your voice," Corvin said. His voice was quiet, but it carried, cutting through Brennan's shouts like a blade. "You're frightening the child." I looked at Pella. She had pressed herself against Aldrich, her face hidden against his chest. Her small body was trembling. Brennan looked at her too, and something in his expression changed. The anger drained away, replaced by something that might have been shame. I apologize," he said. "I didn't mean—" "You're worried," Sister Verity said gently. "We all are. But shouting will not make the storm pass faster. It will only make the waiting harder." Brennan ran a hand through his hair. He suddenly looked very tired. "My wife," he said quietly. "She's expecting a child, our first. She's due any day now. I was supposed to be home a week ago." The silence that followed was different from the one before. This was not the silence of anger or contempt, but of understanding, of shared vulnerability. "I'm sorry, Thessaly said, and this time her voice was softer. "I didn't know." "How could you?" Brennan righted his chair and he sat down heavily. "I didn't tell anyone. I thought if I didn't say it out loud, it wouldn't feel so real. The fear is always real," Marin said. She had woken during the commotion and was watching Brennan with her clouded eyes. "Whether we speak it or not, I've found it helps to say it. Gives it less power over you." Brennan looked at her. "Does it?" "Sometimes," she smiled. "Not always, but sometimes." That afternoon, something shifted. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but I felt it. The walls between us had begun to come down. We were still strangers, still wary, still uncertain, but we were no longer quite so separate. Brennan's outburst, his confession, had cracked something open, had reminded us that we were all human, all frightened, all waiting for something. Marin began to tell stories. She had a gift for it, I discovered. Though her eyes were failing, her memory was sharp, and her voice was gentle and compelling. She spoke of her childhood in a village by the sea, of the sound of waves and the cry of gulls, and a smell of salt in the air. She spoke of meeting Boren when she was 16, of knowing immediately that he was the one she would marry. She spoke of raising children and losing children, of joy and grief and all the ordinary miracles that make up a life. As she spoke, I watched the others. Thessaly was listening intently, her mask of coldness slipping a little. Brennan had forgotten his impatience, absorbed in the tale. Corvin had stopped sharpening his knife and was simply sitting, his face thoughtful. Sister Verity smiled softly. Even the physician Elric seemed to relax a fraction, the tension in his shoulders easing, and Pella had turned her face toward Marin, not looking at her exactly, but listening, really listening. Her eyes were still empty, but there was something in her posture, a kind of attention that had not been there before. Marin must have sensed it, because she shifted her story. She began to describe the sunsets over the sea, the way the sky would turn first gold, then orange, then pink and purple, and finally a deep, deep blue that was almost black. The way the water would catch the colors and hold them, turning the whole world into a painting. "I can't see them anymore," Marin said softly, "the sunsets. But I remember them, every one. They're still there in my mind, as bright and beautiful as the day I saw them." Pella made a sound. It was barely a sound, really, a small intake of breath, a noise so quiet that I might have imagined it. But Aldrich heard it too. His head snapped toward his niece, his eyes wide with hope. Pella did not speak, but she had responded. For the first time in 3 months, she had made a sound in the presence of someone other than her uncle. It was a small thing, a tiny thing, but it felt like a crack of light in a dark room. That night, as the wind howled and the snow continued to fall, I wrote in my journal by the light of the white candle. "The inn is full," I wrote. 8 souls, 9 counting myself, all trapped by the storm. We are strangers to each other, but we are beginning to become something else. I do not know what. I only know that the walls are coming down. I looked at the candle. It burned steadily, unchanged, undiminished, despite the hours it had been lit. "Light this when you have need," the old woman had said. "It will burn longer than you expect." I had need now. We all lit, and the candle kept burning to 3, the thaw, the 19th day of the month of the wolf moon. The storm had settled into a rhythm. Wind, snow, silence, wind, snow, silence. It had become the heartbeat of our days, as constant and predictable as the rush and fall of breath. We had stopped jumping at each gust, stopped rushing to the windows to check the sky. The storm simply was, and we had accepted it, the way one accepts the coming of night or the passing of seasons. With acceptance came a kind of peace. The 3rd morning, Corvin came to me with a concern. "The stable," he said. "I heard something from outside. I think part of the roof may have given way under the weight of the snow." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. The stable housed 3 horses, including Marin and Boren's gentle old mare. "If the roof had collapsed, I'll check it," I said. "Wait here." "I'll come with you," Corvin said. It was not a question, and when Aldrich overheard, he stood as well. "I was a carpenter before I was an uncle," he said. "If there's repair work to be done, I can help." The three of us bundled ourselves in every piece of warm clothing we could find and pushed out the back door into the storm. The cold was a physical force, hitting us like a wall. The wind drove the snow into our faces, blinding us, making every step a struggle. The distance from the inn to the stable was perhaps 50 yards, but it felt like a mile. I could barely see Corvin and Aldrich beside me, reduced to vague shapes in the swirling white. When we reached the stable, we found that Corvin had been right. A section of the roof had indeed collapsed. The weight of the accumulated snow, too much for the old beams to bear. Snow had poured into the stable through the gap, creating a drift that reached nearly to the horses' bellies. The horses were frightened, but unharmed. We calmed them as best we could, then set to work. There was no time for careful carpentry, no time for elegant solutions. We simply had to stop the breach before more still poured in. Aldrich directed us, his voice calm and confident, despite the wind that tried to steal his words. We gathered fallen beams and broken boards. We found spare timber stored in the back of the stable. We worked together passing materials, holding things in place, hammering nails with frozen fingers. It took nearly 2 hours. By the time we were finished, my hands had no feeling in them, and my face was numb. But the breach was closed, the horses were safe, and something else had happened too. Something I did not recognize until later. We had worked together, we had trusted each other, we had relied on each other's strength and skill, and in doing so, we had become something more than strangers. When we stumbled back into the inn, frozen and exhausted, the others were waiting. Sister Verity had hot drinks ready. Thessaly, of all people, helped strip off our frozen cloaks. Brennan stoked the fire higher. Marin and Boren made room for us on the bench closest to the hearth. "The horses are safe," I managed through chattering teeth. "The roof is patched. It's not pretty, but it will hold." "You could have asked for help," Brennan said. His voice was gruff but not unkind. "I'm not much for carpentry, but I can hold a board." "Next time," Corvin said. There was something almost like a smile on his battered face. "We'll know who to call." That afternoon, the conversations began. Not the careful, surface-level talk of strangers, but the real kind, the kind that happens when walls come down, the kind that happens when people realize they are in this together, whatever this is, and that pretending otherwise helps no one. I was not part of these conversations. An innkeeper learns to be present without being intrusive, to be available without being demanding. I moved around the common room, tending the fire, bringing food and drink, listening without appearing to listen. Aldrich and Corvin sat together by one of the windows, speaking in low voices. I caught fragments of their conversation. Corvin was telling Aldrich about the army, about the years he had spent as a soldier, about the order he had refused to follow, the one that would have required him to do something he could not live with. He did not say what the order was, and Aldrich did not ask. Some things are better left unnamed. So, you left, Aldrich said. It was not a question, not a judgment, just a recognition. I left, Corvin agreed. They call it desertion. I call it conscience. Either way, there's no going back. Is there anything you would go back to, if you could? Corvin was pliant for a long moment. The brotherhood, he said finally, the sense of being part of something larger than yourself, of having men who would die for you and knowing you would die for them, that I miss. At another table, Sister Verity had finally cornered the physician Elric. I could not hear their conversation, but I could see Elric's face. The mask he had been wearing since he arrived was cracking. His jaw was tight, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Whatever Sister Verity was saying to him, it was reaching something he had tried to keep buried. Later, when Sister Verity came to the kitchen to refill her cup, I asked her about it. He lost a patient, she said quietly, a child, a little girl about the same age as Pella. He did everything he could, but the fever was too strong. The parents blamed him. He blamed himself more. And now he is drowning in guilt. He has convinced himself that he is a murderer, that his hands, which were trained to heal, brought death instead. She shook her head. It is a lie, of course. The kind of lie we tell ourselves when we cannot accept that some things are beyond our control, but it is a lie that has eaten him alive. Can you help him? I can try. I can listen. I can pray for him. I can tell him what I know to be true, that healing is not the same as saving, that sometimes, despite everything we do, death wins. That does not make us killers. It makes us human. She paused, looking out the small kitchen window at the falling snow. I have lost patients too, she said. Many of them. I have held their hands as they slipped away. I have closed their eyes. I have washed their bodies and prepared them for burial. And every time I have asked myself, could I have done more? Was there something I missed? Did I fail them? She turned back to me. The answer is always yes and no. Yes, perhaps there was something more. There's always something more. But also no, because we are not gods. We cannot command death to stay its hand. We can only do what we can and trust that it is enough. That evening, we gathered around the fire, and for the first time, someone asked for stories. It was Boren who asked. He had been quiet for most of the day, content to sit beside his wife and watch the others. But as the darkness fell and the fire crackled and the wind howled outside, he cleared his throat and said, "Tell us about yourselves. Where do you come from? Where you're going? What matters to you?" There was a moment of hesitation, a long moment, and then Brennan spoke. "My father was a merchant before me," he said, "and his father before him. We dealt in cloth, mostly, fine fabrics from the East. My father used to say that fabric was the foundation of civilization. Without it, we would all be naked and cold." He almost smiled. I thought that was ridiculous when I was young. Now I understand what he meant. We need more than shelter. We need warmth. We need beauty. We need soft things against our skin to remind us that we are alive. He spoke of his wife then, Inga, her name was. He described her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she could never remember to put out candles before bed. He spoke of the child growing inside her, the child he might not be there to meet. And as he spoke, his hard merchant's exterior softened, revealing the frightened father beneath. Thessaly spoke next. She had been drinking wine, more than usual, and her walls were lower than I had ever seen them. His name was Damon, she said, her hand resting on the clay urn beside her. We met at a harvest festival when I was 17. He was the worst dancer I had ever seen. Absolutely hopeless. I told him so. He laughed and said, "Then you'll have to teach me." So I did. Her voice caught. I spent 6 years teaching that man to dance. 6 years. And just when he finally started to get it right, just when we had everything we wanted, he got sick. A cough that wouldn't go away. A fever that wouldn't break. 3 months from the first symptom to the last breath. She was crying now, the tears running down her face unchecked. She made no move to wipe them away. The last thing he asked me to do was take him home, she continued, back to the village where he was born, back to the place where his parents are buried, where his grandparents are buried. He wanted to be with them, so I'm taking him there, however long it takes, through whatever storms I have to cross. The fire crackled, the wind howled, and around the hearth, walls continued to fall. Marin spoke. Of the grandchild she might never see. Aldrich spoke of the terror of sudden parenthood, of becoming responsible for a child he barely knew how to talk to. Corvin spoke, briefly and haltingly, of the men he had served with, the brothers he had left behind. Sister Verity spoke of faith, of doubt, of the times when she had questioned whether God was listening at all. And Elric finally spoke of the child he had lost. Her name was Lily, he said. His voice was raw. She was 7 years old. She had red hair and freckles and a laugh that sounded like bells. Her parents brought her to me when the fever started. They trusted me. They believed I could save her. Save her, he paused. His hands were shaking. I tried everything, he continued. Every remedy I knew. I bled her. I purged her. I applied poultices and gave her tinctures. Nothing worked. The fever burned through her like fire through dry grass. And in the end, all I could do was hold her hand and watch her die. Pella was watching him. I noticed because I was watching her, as I had been watching her all through the evening. She was still silent, still closed, but there was something in her eyes. Something that recognized his pain, something that connected. The parents blamed me, Elric said. They said I was a fraud, a murderer. They drove me out of town with stones and curses. And they were right. They were right to blame me. I failed their daughter. No, Sister Verity said gently. The fever killed their daughter. You tried to save her. There is a difference. Is there? His voice cracked. Sometimes I can't tell anymore. The fire had burned low, the candles had guttered, and still we sat, bound together by our confessions, our griefs, our hopes. Somehow, without deciding to, we had become something. Not quite family, but not strangers anymore either. That night, as I climbed the stairs to my chamber, I paused at the landing and looked back at the common room. The fire still burned, lower now, but still warm. The guests had begun to settle for the night, some on the benches, some on pallets we had laid out on the floor. They were closer together than they had been on the first night, not quite touching, but closer, as if unconsciously they had moved toward each other's warmth. The white candle burned on the mantel, steady and pure. "Welcome them all," the old woman had said. I had. And something was changing. Something was healing. The storm still raged outside, but inside there was light. Day 4, the deepening. The 20th day of the month of the wolf moon, snow continued to fall. By the morning of the 4th day, it had piled so high against the walls of the inn that the ground floor windows were buried completely. We lived now in a world of firelight and candlelight, the outside world reduced to occasional glimpses through the upper windows, where the snow had not yet reached, and even there was nothing to see but white. White sky, white earth, white everything. But inside, something had changed. The mood was different. The tension that had marked our first days together had eased, replaced by something softer, warmer. We moved around each other more easily now, anticipated each other's needs, made room without being asked. We had become, in some small way, a community. Brennan no longer paced or complained. He had found a purpose. He appointed himself keeper of the fire, feeding it logs at regular intervals, poking the coals to keep them hot, ensuring that the warmth never flagged. It gave him something to do, something to focus on, besides the wife he could not reach, and it gave him a role, a way to contribute, a reason to be useful. Corvin had taken over the care of the horses. 3 times a day he bundled himself in furs and fought his way through the snow to the stable, checking on the animals, bringing them water and hay, cleaning their stalls. It was hard, exhausting work made harder by the storm, but he did it without complaint, and I began to understand that this was how he showed affection, not with words, but with actions, with service. Sister Verity had become our healer in truth, not just in name. She moved among us, checking for signs of cold sickness, treating the small injuries and ailments that had accumulated. Marin's joints ached. Sister Verity rubbed them with warming oils. Aldrich had developed a cough. She brewed a tea of honey and herbs that seemed to ease it. Thessaly's hands were cracked and dry from the cold air. Sister Verity applied a salve of her own making. And Elric was beginning to emerge from his darkness. It happened slowly, over the course of the day, small things at first. He came down to breakfast without being summoned. He took his meals in the common room instead of alone in his chamber. He spoke, not much, but more than he had before. He even smiled once when Boren told a joke about 2 farmers and a stubborn goat. And then, late in the morning, he did something I had not expected. He went to Pella. The child was sitting alone by the fire, as she often did. Aldrich had gone to help Corvin with the horses, leaving her in the care of the others. She sat perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the flames, her small hands folded in her lap. Elric approached her slowly, carefully. He did not speak. He simply sat down on the floor beside her, a respectful distance away, and looked at the fire with her. For a long time, nothing happened. They just sat there, two silent figures before the flames, each wrapped in their own grief. And then Elric spoke. "I knew a girl about your age once," he said quietly. "Her name was Lily. She had red hair, just like my mother, and she loved to play in the mud. Every time it rained, she would run outside and splash in the puddles until she was covered head to toe." Pella did not move, did not react, but she was listening, I could tell. "Her mother used to get so angry," Elric continued. "She would say, 'Lily, you're making more work for me.' But she was never really angry, not really. She loved Lily too much to be angry at her for long." He paused. His voice was thick when he spoke again. "Lily got sick," he said, "and I tried to make her better. I tried so hard, but I couldn't. The sickness was too strong, and she died, and I miss her every day." Pella's hand moved. It was a tiny movement, almost imperceptible. Her fingers unclenched. Her hand slid across the floor just a few inches and came to rest on Elric's hand. Elric looked down at her small hand on his, and then he wept. He wept silently, the tears streaming down his face, his shoulders shaking. And Pella did not pull her hand away. She left it there on his, a tiny anchor in a storm of grief. Sister Verity found me in the kitchen watching through the doorway. "Sometimes," she said softly, "the best healers are the ones who are wounded themselves. They understand pain. They don't flinch from it." "Will he be all right?" I asked. "In time, maybe. The guilt will never fully leave him, but perhaps he can learn to carry it without letting it crush him." She looked at Pella. "And perhaps she can help. Sometimes the grieving can save each other when no one else can reach them." That afternoon, as the short winter day began to fade toward evening, Sister Verity asked if she might lead a blessing before our meal. It was a simple request, gently made, and yet I saw the hesitation on some faces, Thessaly's especially. Whatever faith she had once had seemed to have died with her husband. "You don't have to believe," Sister Verity said, seeing their reluctance. "You don't have to pray if you don't want to. But sometimes it helps to pause, to acknowledge that we are here together, to give thanks for what we have, even in the midst of what we've lost." No one objected, and so we bowed our heads. Sister Verity's prayer was not what I expected. She did not speak of God or heaven or salvation. She spoke of us, of the storm that had brought us together, of the meals we had shared and the stories we had told, of the fire that kept us warm and the roof that kept us dry, of the kindness we had shown each other, stranger to stranger, in this unexpected refuge. "We do not know why we are here," she said. We do not know what tomorrow will bring, but we are here now, together, and that is enough. That is grace. When she finished, there was a long silence, and then Thessaly spoke. I want to do something, she said. Her voice was strange, uncertain. For Delman, for my husband. I've been carrying his ashes, waiting to reach his home. But I realized I don't want to wait anymore. I want to let him go, just a little. I want to set a part of him free. She looked at the fire. Would it be wrong, she asked, to put a little of him in the fire so that part of him will always be warm, so that even if I never reach his home, some of him will have been released? It would not be wrong, Marin said gently. It would be a gift, a blessing. Thessaly looked at the others. One by one they nodded. She rose and went to her chamber. When she returned, she carried the clay urn. Her hands were trembling, but her face was calm, resolved. We gathered around the hearth. The fire crackled. The wind howled outside. And Thessaly opened the urn. The ashes inside were gray and fine, like powder, like dust. She reached in with her bare hand and took a small pinch between her fingers. I loved you, she whispered. I will always love you, and wherever I go, you will be with me. But I'm letting this part of you go. I'm setting this part of you free. She held her hand over the fire, opened her fingers, let the ashes fall. They drifted down into the flames, caught the light for a moment, and were gone. Thessaly closed her eyes. The tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. Goodbye, my love, she said. Be warm. The fire flared just for a moment, a bright leap of flame, gold and orange and red, and then it settled, burning steady and strong. That night, as I made my rounds before bed, I found Marin still awake. She was sitting by the fire, her clouded eyes turned toward the flames she could no longer see. Borant was asleep beside her, his head on her shoulder, his breathing slow and even. You should sleep, I said softly. I will, she said. Soon. I just wanted to sit here a little longer. It's strange. I can't see the fire, but I can feel it. The warmth on my face, the light even through my closed eyes. It's comforting. I sat down beside her. May I ask you something? I said. Of course. The grandchild, the one you're going to see, do you think you'll make it? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. I don't know, she said, and I've decided that it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. When I was younger, I thought that the only thing that mattered was reaching your destination, getting where you were going, achieving your goals. But I've learned something in all these years. The journey matters too. The people you meet along the way, the stories you share, the unexpected shelters you find in unexpected storms. She reached out and found my hand. I may never hold my grandson, she said. The storm may last too long. The mountains may be too hard to cross. My body may give out before I get there. But I have held something else these past few days. I have held Pella's silence and Elric's grief and Thessaly's loss. I have been held by all of you. And that is a gift. That is a destination in itself. The fire crackled. The white candle burned. "You're a wise woman," I said. "I'm an old woman," she said. "That's not the same thing, but sometimes, if you live long enough, wisdom comes as a side effect." I left her there, by the fire, her husband asleep against her shoulder, her blind eyes turned toward the warmth she could still feel. And I went to my chamber and wrote by candlelight until the words blurred and sleep finally came. Day 5, the departure. The 21st day of the month of the wolf moon, I woke to silence. For a moment, I did not understand. I lay in my narrow bed, staring at the sloped ceiling, trying to identify what was different, and then it came to me. The wind had stopped. For 5 days, it had howled without pause. It had become the background of our existence, so constant that we had stopped hearing it. But now it was gone, and the silence it left behind was immense, profound, almost holy. I rose and went to my window. The storm had broken. The sky was clear, a pale winter blue that seemed to go on forever. The sun was just rising, its light catching the snow and transforming it into a landscape of diamonds. Everything sparkled, everything shone. The world had been remade in white, and it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. The ancient oak tree stood at the crossroads, its branches heavy with snow, but otherwise unharmed. All around it, younger trees had fallen broken by the wind or the weight of the snow. But the oak remained. It had weathered the storm, as it had weathered so many storms before. It would weather many more. I dressed quickly and went downstairs. The others were already stirring. Brennan was at the window, staring out at the white world with an expression of wonder and hope. Corvin was pulling on his boots, preparing to check on the horses. Sister Verity was helping Marin to the window, describing what she could not see. "It's over," Brennan said. His voice was hushed, as if he was afraid that speaking too loudly might bring the storm back. The storm is over." "It is," I agreed. "But the roads will still be buried. It will take time before they are passable." "How long? A day? Perhaps 2. If the sun stays out, the snow will settle. People will begin to move. The roads will open." He nodded, his jaw tight. 1 or 2 more days. After everything, it seemed like nothing. And yet it was still time away from his wife, still time when she might need him, and he would not be there. "She'll be all right," Sister Verity said gently. "Women have been having babies for thousands of years. She is strong. She will be fine." "I know," Brennan said. "I just wish I could be there. I wish I could hold her hand, tell her I love her, see our child being born." "You will see the child," Boren said. He had woken and joined us by the window. "You will hold it in your arms and feel its weight and smell its smell. And you will tell your wife that you love her, and she will tell you that she loves you, and everything will be exactly as it should be, just a little later than you planned." We made breakfast together that morning, not me alone in the kitchen, but all of us. Corvin cracked the eggs. Thessaly sliced the bread. Brennan tended the fire. Sister Verity brewed the tea. Even Pella helped, stirring the porridge under Aldrich's watchful eye. It was a chaotic, crowded, wonderful meal, full of laughter and bumping elbows and spilled milk. And it was the first meal where everyone talked, not the careful, measured conversation of strangers, but the easy, overlapping chatter of friends. Stories were told, jokes were made, plans were discussed. The future, which had seemed so distant and uncertain, suddenly felt close again, possible again. And Pella laughed. It happened during a story Boren was telling, something about a goat that had gotten into his neighbor's garden. The punchline was not particularly clever. The story was not particularly funny, but Boren told it with such delight, such evident joy in the telling, that it became funnier than it had any right to be. And Pella laughed. It was a small sound, a hesitant sound, a sound that seemed to surprise even her. But it was unmistakably a laugh, the first sound other than silence that had come from her in 3 months. Aldrich's face crumpled. He pulled his niece into his arms and held her, his body shaking with sobs he tried to muffle against her hair. Pella did not pull away. She wrapped her small arms around his neck and held on. And somewhere in the embrace, something broke and something healed. The white candle on the mantel flared just for a moment, a bright pulse of light that seemed to spread through the room like a wave, and then it settled, burning steady, burning true. By midday, the first guest was ready to leave. It was Corvin. He came to me with his pack on his back and his hand extended. "Thank you," he said, "for the shelter, for the food, for everything." "The roads are still buried," I said. "You could wait another day." He shook his head. "I've been still too long. I need to move. And besides," he added with a small smile, "I've got somewhere to be." "Where?" "I don't know yet, but I'll know when I get there." He gripped my hand firmly. Then he turned and walked out the door into the white world, leaving a trail of footprints behind him. I watched until he reached the crossroads, until he paused beneath the ancient oak and looked back at the inn one last time. Then he turned north and walked and was gone. Brennan left next. He was nearly running as he headed east toward his wife, toward his child. He did not look back. He did not need to. His heart was already there, already home. Thessaly followed Tint. The early afternoon. She came to me before she left, the clay urn in her arms. It was lighter now, I knew, by the small amount she had given to the fire, but she carried it the same way she always had, close against her chest, precious and loved. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was softer than it had been when she arrived. Her eyes were warmer. "I came here wanting only to wait out the storm and continue my journey. I didn't expect to... This. She gestured vaguely around the room. All of it. The talking, the stories, the blessing, the healing. She looked down at the urn. "I thought I would carry this weight forever. I thought it would crush me. But it's lighter now, not gone, but lighter. And I think I might be able to bear it." "You will bear it," I said. "You're stronger than you know." She smiled. It was not the hard, brittle smile she had worn when she arrived. It was something gentler, something true. "Maybe," she said, "I'm starting to believe you might be right." Sister Verity left with Elric. I had not expected this. I had not known they were going the same direction, but as they prepared to leave, I saw them talking quietly by the fire, saw Sister Verity's hand on Elric's arm, saw him nod slowly. "He needs more time," Sister Verity told me, "more healing. I have invited him to stay at our house for a while, to rest, to recover, to find his way back to himself." "Do you think he will?" "I think he has a chance, a better chance than he would have had alone." She looked at me with those calm, assessing eyes. "You have a gift, you know, for bringing people together, for creating space where healing can happen. Don't underestimate it." I watched them walk away together. The nun and the broken physician, their footsteps side by side in the snow. Aldrich and Pella were the last to leave. They were going east, to the farm where Pella would live with her new family. Aldrich's face was worried still, but hopeful too. Something had changed in the last 5 days. Pella had laughed. She had touched Elric's hand. She had stirred the porridge and helped set the table. Small things, but significant. Signs of life returning. Pella came to me before they left. She stood in front of me, this small, silent child who had lost everything and somehow found the strength to begin again. Her eyes were still sad, still deep, but there was something else there now, something that had not been there before. She held out her hand. In it was a small stone, smooth and round, the kind you might find by a river. I took it. She looked at me for a long moment, and then she spoke. "Thank you," she whispered. They were the first words she had spoken in 3 months, and they were given to me. I could not speak. My throat was too tight, so I simply nodded and held the stone against my heart and watched as Aldrich led her out the door into the white world toward whatever future awaited. Marin and Borin stayed one more night. They were too tired, Borin said, for the journey over the mountains. They would rest one more day, gather their strength, and set out in the morning. That evening, we sat by the fire together, just the 3 of us. The inn felt empty without the others. Empty, but not lonely. The echoes of their presence remained like warmth that lingers after a fire has burned down. "Will you remember us?" Marin asked. "Always," I said. "I will write about you, about all of you, in my journal, so that nothing is forgotten." She smiled. "I like that. The idea that we will live on somewhere in someone's words, that even when we are gone, a part of us will remain." "A part of you will always remain here," I said. "In this inn, at this crossroads, you are part of its story now." Borin took his wife's hand. She leaned her head against his shoulder. The fire crackled. The white candle burned. "Thank you," Marin said, "for giving us shelter, for giving us time, for giving us each other. That is what the inn is for," I said. "That is what it has always been for." They left in the morning, Marin holding Borin's arm. their old mare walking patiently behind them. I watched this until they reached the crossroads, until they passed beneath the ancient oak and took the road toward the mountains. Then I went back inside, to the empty common room, to the fire that still burned, to the white candle that still glowed on the mantel. I thought of all of them. Corvin, seeking something he could not name. Brennan, racing toward the family he loved. Thessaly, carrying her grief and her hope toward a destination that might finally bring peace. Sister Verity and Elric, walking together toward healing, Eldrick and Pella, beginning a new chapter in lives that had been broken and were slowly being mended. Marin and Borin, continuing a journey that had lasted 47 years and might last longer still. They had come to the inn as strangers. They had left as something more. Welcome them all, the old woman had said. This is a place of rest for whoever needs it. I had welcomed them. They had rested, and something had happened, something that I could not fully explain. Walls had come down, wounds had begun to heal, lives had been changed, and the inn stood as it had always stood at the crossroads where the roads meet, waiting, ready for the next storm, ready for the next stranger, ready for whatever comes. And so the storm passes, as all storms do.
If you're still awake, I want you to know you are welcome here too, in this place of rest, in this refuge from whatever storms you are weathering. You have found your way to the inn at the crossroads, and the fire is burning, and the door is always open. If you've enjoyed tonight's story, I hope you'll come back. There are more entries in the journal, more travelers who pass through, more quiet moments of healing and hope. For now, rest. Let your eyes close, let your breathing slow. The world outside can wait until morning. Good night, sleep well, until we meet again.